Hi guys, Squirrel here, and welcome to my third episode in my tutorial series on Microsoft Flight Simulator. Now, if you're new to the series or you've been watching, don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss out on any future episodes. In this episode, we are going to focus on camera setup. I will warn you ahead of time that camera setup in Microsoft Flight Simulator is in-depth and in places not terribly intuitive. However, I hope to pick things apart for you and certainly help you out to get the basics nailed and also show you some advanced stuff. So let's get started. So make sure that you've fired up the simulator and you've got all of your peripherals plugged in because you may want to map some controls during this video. Now, the videos in the tutorial series do build upon each other in terms of knowledge, so if you've not seen the previous episodes, I strongly urge you to go and watch those before continuing. What I'd like to do is click on the world map, top left, click on the aircraft, choose airliners, and choose the A320neo. Everybody has this. Top right, then choose the flight conditions, turn the multiplier off, air traffic off, and then choose preset, choose clear skies, pick 12 p.m. will do, and choose LOWI, which is Lowy Innsbruck, and runway 26 is the starting point, and click fly. So if you did all that right, you should now be sat in the A320 at Innsbruck. I've turned off the main engine just to make things a bit quieter while I talk to you. Now you may be wondering, why did I choose the A320? Well, the A320 is a reasonably complex aircraft which comes with some default cameras which you'll be interested in seeing, particularly around the instrument views. Every aircraft comes with default cameras in Microsoft Flight Simulator, but you can also map your own custom ones, and I'll show you how to do that later. So the first thing you'll want to do is know how to just briefly look around. Hold down the right mouse button, and you should be able to just pan around the cockpit, use the mouse wheel, and you can zoom in and out. All very straightforward. Having zoomed in and out and moved the mouse around and got yourself in a bit of a pickle, control space will take you back to the default view. Now there are three main camera modes in Microsoft Flight Simulator. There's the cockpit camera, which you see here. There's the external camera, which is accessible by pressing the end key. That's external camera, and it will show you the basic controls of the aircraft, flaps, altitude, airspeed, that kind of thing. Press the end key again, and you go back into the cockpit. If you press the insert key, that will take you to the drone camera, and the drone camera is something that you can move and fly around quite easily. It's quite literally a drone. Press the insert key, go back to the cockpit. We'll go through those cameras later. For now, I want to focus on the cockpit. So first up, we have the quick views. If you hold the control key and press left, hold left, it will quickly look to the left or to the right. Press the back arrow key and it will look behind you. Press the forward arrow key and it will slightly look up. So control left, control right, literally the arrow keys. Notice I had to hold those down because of the particular mode that I'm in. If you go to the general settings under camera, the quick view function can either be set into a hold mode where you have to hold the keys down, or into a toggle mode where you simply press it once, like so, and it will hold that position until you press it again. It's up to you which option you want to go for. Next, we'll take a look at instrument views. Now, instrument views are essentially views on various parts of your instruments. Depending on the aircraft you're flying, some of them will not be implemented. On the Airbus, we've got about 7 instrument views. To access them, you press Control 1, Control 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 goes to the overhead, and then 9 brings you back here, and 0 brings you back here. So 9 and 0 are not implemented. But for example, on the Dreamliner, Control 9 has 2 overhead views. Now also, when you press one of the instrument views, like say Control 2, you can then press the A key to cycle through the instrument views in order, or Shift A to go back in order. So that's the instrument views. They can all be mapped to various buttons on your devices. So how do you actually move the camera around inside of the cockpit? Well, let's look at the keyboard mappings for that. However, before we do that, there's one thing that I really suggest that you do. Press Escape, go to Controls, then click on your keyboard, which should be on the default mapping. Choose all so we can see all the mappings. Camera, cockpit camera. And scroll down until you see this option here. Translate cockpit view forward and backwards. By default, the first column will go quite literally forwards and backwards, and the second column translates forward and backwards in a 45-degree vertical slope, which is very odd. Also, the right Alt key is being used by default in mappings, and I strongly urge you not to use the right Alt key, because in different countries, different keyboards, Windows will interpret the right Alt key sometimes as Alt Graph and sometimes as a left control Alt. It's all behaved very strangely, and I strongly suggest that you get rid of it. So what we'll do is click on it, click clear. It'll then ask us to make a new keyboard profile, which we'll just call episode 3. Get rid of that one. And what we'll do is we'll move these over here. So we'll click on that and then left Alt down. Click on this, left Alt up, and then clear those two. So you should have left Alt down and up now. Do not use the right Alt key. I strongly urge you not to do that. Click apply. Now when we go back, we should be able to use the left Alt key to go forwards and backwards with the arrow keys. Additionally, we can hold Alt key and go left and right. So that gives us forwards, backwards, left and right. If we then hold the Shift key, we can go up and down on our rotation and right and left. So the only thing now is the vertical up and down. That is simply done by using the arrow keys. So that goes up and down. Left and right also works on the default arrow keys. So now we've got the default arrow keys doing this, the Alt arrow keys doing this, and the Shift arrow keys doing this. And what that means is that we can position the camera pretty much anywhere we want now. So, for example, we could look to the right, hold the Alt key, move forward, hold the Shift key, and move down. And then if we wanted to, bring the mouse wheel out and just zoom in. And now we could save that as a custom camera view, and we'll look at that now. So one thing I've noticed while playing this sim is that when you're coming in on approach, or when you're taxiing, or when you're just sat in the cockpit in cruise, you often want to have slightly different camera views. Now Microsoft Flight Simulator does help you in this regard a little bit. For example, if you press the space key, it gives you what's called an elevated position, which can be useful, particularly if your nose is high and you're looking down at the landing and you can't quite see what's going on. You can just quickly press the space key. There's also something called IFR mode that you can toggle, which is not mapped by default, but you can map a button or a key to it, and that will give you this kind of view, which is focusing on the instruments and is slightly more zoomed in. However, you can't really beat a custom view, and let's talk about how to do that. So to create a custom view, we have 10 of them in total we can use, and you program them by pressing Control Alt and then the numbers from 1 to 0. And you access them by pressing Alt on its own and 1 to 0. So let's take a look. Let's say we've got this kind of view here, and we think, oh, it'd be really nice if we could maybe just move forward a touch, maybe go up slightly, and pitch the nose. Not quite that much. Let's use the mouse and do it instead. Maybe like that. So we're slightly forward, slightly up, and you know, if you wanted to, you could even zoom in just a touch, but you want to be able to read all the instruments. Something like that. So now you press Control Alt and then pick a number. Let's say we're going to choose number 1 for this. So Control Alt and 1. We'll program that in. Now we'll press the Control Space key to just go back to our default position. And now when we press Alt 1, we get this. So you could put that on one of your peripherals, or you could put it on a button, or if you have a Stream Deck or something, you could just punch in Alt 1 in the Stream Deck and, you know, call it main view or landing view or whatever you want. That's one of the custom cameras. Let's say we want to create another one. So for example, let's say we want something that looks down at the FMC like this, but you're the kind of person that would much prefer it to be up here like a captain's view. So you might want to just kind of scroll around like that. Maybe move forward a touch like this, and then just scroll down, zoom in, and let's say you want to program the FMC like that. So we'll put that into, I say, number 2. So we do Control, Alt, and 2. We go back to our main view. When we press Alt 2, we get that. So why would you have custom views and why would you have normal instrument views? Well, instrument views, which are accessible with Control 1, 2, 3, 4, are automatically programmed for you in every aircraft that you fly, whereas custom views are something that you will have to do yourself. So I can't take these custom views that I've just done here and apply them to my Cessna 172. I will have instrument views pre-programmed, but I won't have any custom views pre-programmed. But custom views basically give you all the versatility that you need inside the cockpit. However, it doesn't feel like we can have custom views externally at the moment. These only seem to apply to cockpit cameras, but still, nevertheless, very, very useful. Now, what I suggest you do is set up your cameras so that you've got a good view like this, a nice default view. You could just roll with the default view or set yourself up with a standard flying position like that. Make sure you've got those. Make sure you've got some stuff programmed for your instruments like this. Want to be able to quickly access all your instrumentation, and take your favorite ones and just map them onto your peripherals. I showed you how to set up mappings on your peripherals in the previous video, so I won't go through that. But that's basically how you do custom views. So before we go on to talk about the external camera and the drone camera and how to use that, let's have a quick look at 2 things. 1, the camera settings, and 2, the camera hotbar. So the camera settings first, press escape, go to general, and click on camera. A lot of the options that are defaulted for cameras can be found in this section here. For example, if we scroll down and look at the cockpit camera, we've got the zoom, which is the current zoom. So you can change the zoom for the default camera. You could change the horizontal position, but I wouldn't recommend it. And then you can change the default height. So if you think that the default camera is a bit low, just come into here and tweak it. When you're flying around in sort of bouncy IFR conditions, you might find that the camera head shake is a bit too much. Well, you can turn it off here. And the flashlight mode, where if you spawn in the cockpit and it's dark outside, you'll have a little flashlight. It's automatically turned on, but you can turn that off here. There are some things like the instruments, whether you want the instrument cameras to be toggleable or you have to hold them. And there's various options around the chase plane camera, which we won't go into. But these are the settings that I like to fly with. Just go through them and basically tweak them however you feel is comfortable for you. It's your sim, so tweak it how you want. Now at the top, if you move your mouse, you get this little icon here. This is the hotbar or the toolbar, whatever you want to call it. And there is an option here for camera. Now, one thing to note is that by default, it seems to spawn in with this. What's actually going on here is this box is expandable, so make sure you expand it, otherwise you're going to miss out on a whole bunch of options. Now, the camera is split into cockpit, external, and showcase. The external camera we'll go through shortly. The showcase is basically the drone camera. But in here, you can basically adjust some of the settings that we just saw back there. But you've also got the presets. And the presets, for example, the instrument presets that I took you through, Control 1, 2, 3, 4, they're all in here, but now you know how to do them with hotkeys, or you can map them to your peripherals. And then you've got the standard sort of pilot view, the close pilot view, the landing, and the co-pilot view. So you can click through them here if you want to. 1 or 2 of these aren't mappable, by the way. I don't know why, but for example, the co-pilot view, I've not been able to find a key mapping for that. But you can always come into here and choose the option. Also, if you kind of get stuck and your camera's pointing at the ground and you've no idea what's going on, just come up to here and use this to sort of reset the position and get yourself back into the cockpit. The quick view. There are a bunch of quick views that I've taken you through, some of which are mapped on the control key, but these tend to work better. As you can see, they're not terribly useful in the Airbus, but they do tend to work better in sort of GA aircraft. So then, what of the external camera? Well, you can access the external camera by simply pressing the end key, or you can come up into the hotbar and just click on external. The external camera is interesting for a number of reasons. Firstly, you can basically fly like this. You've got full access to the controls while you're in external camera. You can see where you're going, you see what speed you're doing, see what the engines are doing, how much fuel you have left. The basics of avionics are here. So you can actually fly around in this camera. Having said that, there are a number of external views that are available. These are what it calls quick views. And 4 of these are mapped and 4 of them are not. You can, of course, go into the settings and map them, but Quick View 1 will give you a view to the right of the aircraft, and Quick View 2 from the front, 3 from to the left, and 4 over the top. 5, 6, 7, and 8 are 45-degree angle mappings, which are not mapped by default. So, for example, if I close this and I want to do Quick View, I can basically press Control and then left, right, up, and down on the arrow keys will access the quick views. What is interesting though is that in here there's no fixed cameras, but there are fixed cameras and they're mapped by default in the key bindings, but they're not available here. I did say to you at the start of this video that this thing can be a bit weird. So the fixed cameras are accessed by Control Shift and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 0. And that's how you basically access the fixed cameras. Press them again, it'll go back to the standard external view. So the most obvious questions leading on from that are, can you customize the fixed cameras? If I go to, say, this camera here, can I move the camera or zoom the camera? Change it in any way? Nope. Unfortunately, it seems that you can't actually adjust the fixed cameras in any way. The next question you ask yourself is, can I go from being in the cockpit to, for example, the gear view? And the answer is, well, yes, you can, but not in the way you might think. Because what you have to do, if you're in the cockpit and you press Control Shift 4, well, what that does is gives you the instrumentation views. What you need to do is press the End key, then Control Shift 4. So you need to change camera mode to external, and then use the keys for that. So it's not quite, say, chase plane or anything like that, where you can be in the cockpit and then immediately switch to an external camera view. Hopefully we'll get some third-party tools that will give us that, but by default, it doesn't appear that we can do it. And that neatly brings us to the showcase camera, which I said to you is the drone camera. Well, it is and it isn't. The showcase camera is actually the drone camera and the fixed cameras. So whereas you might think the fixed cameras belong under the external view, they don't. They belong in the showcase view. Whereas the showcase view should probably just be the drone. But anyway, whatever. So under the showcase, you have a whole bunch of external cameras, which we've just been through. And then if you click on the drone, you get the drone camera with the drone options. And this is where things get kind of interesting. You do have a bunch of options here to do with the drone focus that you can basically adjust. So you can make it so that the drone is focused on particular things. You can adjust the depth of field. You can make it focus on just the plane and blur things in the background. You can get really creative with this, and I'm not going to go through those options. However, the drone controls are WA, so that's A and D, W and S to go forwards and backwards, so you can translate around. Then you've got R and F to go up and down. And then on the numeric keypad, assuming you've got one, 4 and 6 will rotate, and 8 and 2 will pitch. And between those, if you kind of use both hands, you can kind of get it to, it's tricky, but you can kind of get it to fly around. Like that. So when you're flying around, you can go to drone camera when you're in cruise and get a really nice view of stuff. If only you can remember what keys to press. Get a nice engine view. That's the drone camera. There is a better way. Of course, you can map keys to your Stream Deck or to your controls or whatever you want to do. But the best option is to plug an Xbox controller in. If you plug an Xbox controller into your sim, suddenly the drone camera becomes fantastic. You can literally use the 2 thumbsticks to scroll around, hold the Y key to zoom in and out, And you can set the speed of the drone movement as well. So for example, let's say I'm flying around and I think, oh, this is a bit too quick. I can hold the A key down and adjust the speed. So I can make it like lovely slow pan like that. Or even just speed it up a little bit. I can left click with my thumbstick and it'll lock onto the plane itself. So no matter which way I move, it will always be pointing at the plane. There's literally so many cool things that you can do when you plug an Xbox controller in for the drone cam. I strongly recommend you buy one if you want to use the drone cam, because it is completely game-changing in how easy it is. So the question is, well, how far can the drone cam fly away? Well, currently it's in follow mode. If you right-click with your thumb, it will disengage from follow mode, so the aircraft can fly away from the drone. By default, the drone will follow with it. But if you actually increase... wrong button. If you actually increase the speed of which you fly... So if I just keep the speed going, I can basically fly quite a long way. And when I say quite a long way, this was the camera I used in my sort of preview videos of Microsoft Flight Sim, where I panned all the way up. I flew, like quite literally just flew up vertically like this and went all the way to sort of satellite levels and came back down again. This is an epic drone, not like a normal drone. This is like a drone plus plus. It can fly anywhere. And depending on your graphic settings and your PC and all the rest of it, you'll see, you know, it copes reasonably well with the scenery, but you will see it sort of load things in and patch things out. Anyway, that is the drone camera. Important to have a reset as well. There is a reset option which will bring the drone cam all the way back. If you look in the settings, you can either map something to that or change something like that, but I strongly recommend you have a reset because you can get quite lost with the drone. But it's fantastic fun, and if you love making kind of videos and things, you're going to love that camera. Now, obviously, I can't go through every single camera option there is, but hopefully this has helped you to understand the camera system and how it works. Just try to remember that it has camera modes. It has cockpit mode, it has external mode, and it has this kind of showcase drone mode. And you have to move between the modes before you try to move any of the cameras. Finally, just to answer one question, does it support Track IR? Yes, if you're lucky enough to have Track IR. You can use head tracking. I'm here just moving my head around up and down, left and right, and you can just pause it. If you have a pause on your Track IR, you can just pause it like that, and then the camera will disengage and snap back to the center like that. Really, really good to have Track IR, particularly if you're GA flying. The ability to look around the cockpit is fantastic. So that concludes this tutorial on how to set up the camera in Microsoft Flight Simulator. I hope you found that very, very useful. In the next video, we're going to look at your first flight. So it's going to put everything together. And for those guys that are not familiar with flying, I'm going to show you how to take off, enjoy yourself, and fly around. Until the next video, guys, take care and happy flying.